Hello, everybody. Good afternoon. Welcome along to your Afternoon Rabble here on the Rangers Rabble Podcast, brought to you by the Rabble Network and the TalkSport Fan Network as well. My name is Martin. I'm your host, and today I am joined by William and Demi. Willie, good afternoon. How are you?
Aye, all good, mate. I just having a nice, peaceful day at home while I watch the rain smashing off the window. It's always good when that happens.
Dead sunny here in Hamilton.
Oh, no, the rain's absolutely smashing off the window here.
How is it in Chukterland, Demi?
Well, I'm in Dundee.
Which is Chukterland.
But no, it's all right. Sun was shining this morning. We had a brief spell of rain, but for now it's all right. It's bloody Baltic in this flat, though, I'll tell you.
By the way, I've been feeling it really cold lately. Like I've had to tell my missus to turn the heating up and everything.
Well, temperatures over the weekend, the actual temperature was like 9 degrees, but when you hit over the weekend, it felt like -2.
Yeah, it was so cold, man. I can't handle the cold anymore. That's why I've got my hoodies or my snoodies or whatever you call them. But my missus was smart. She got herself one right now. Admittedly, it's all designed with love hearts on it, right? But Wally, hers is a lot thicker than mine, and it's warmer than mine, and it's cozier than mine, so I just wear it.
See, I can't say much because Pauline bought me one about, I don't know, maybe like 3 years ago now. And I do wear it. I've got to say it's really hot, but like the problem at like my stage of life is, see, when I put it on and the heating's on, I tend to fall asleep. So I tend not to wear it as much as I once did. As soon as I feel that snuggleness of the hoodie and then the heating's on and I'm sitting at the top of the bed watching the telly, I'm gone.
Out cold, man.
Concrete.
Out cold.
I know.
Cold is dangerous for old guys like yourself, Martin Ross. You're right.
So true.
Right. You're absolutely right. Right. I thought we would start the day by focusing not quite on Rangers, but I feel as if I don't think, Demi, we've had a lot to smile about in the last few years. We've certainly not had a lot to smile about this season, as it has been absolutely drastically bad. So I'm not saying this in a sort of ha way, but we need to take advantage of their meltdown across the city, don't we?
Yeah, look, me and Dad were saying this morning, what a season for our board to get it wrong at the start and appoint such a, manager, of which I won't describe because we all know how his time at Rangers was. But we've not really chose the best of seasons to get even worse than we have been recently, because if we had appointed Danny Rowe at the start of the season, who's to say that we wouldn't be up there now? But yeah, I guess it is all ifs and buts. But from now, we have to start, and obviously tomorrow night, but most importantly on Sunday, we need to start hitting their weaknesses, which at the minute, with the amount of their team that's out injured at the minute, their weaknesses are all over the park.
Yeah, but where's our weaknesses? That's the question. That is the question.
That's our weaknesses, Martin. They've got their second choice weaknesses because their best players were already weak, but now they've lost them all to injury, so it's their even weaker than weak players.
So if it was a Honda Civic, what is it now? Is it like a Reliant Robin now? I don't know. See, that comment's going to come back to bite me on the arse if we don't win on Sunday now. But Michel Charon is spot on. We need to focus entirely on Hibs. We do. We absolutely do. But you can still, poke a little bit of fun at your neighbours when things are going bad, because they would do the same to us. And I suppose the biggest losers in all this is the Gucci belt shop in Glasgow.
No, I mean, I think I've seen him maybe 2 or 3 times at academy games, and he always did seem to have a really nice belt or a really nice outfit on. So he obviously had quite a bit of money. But look, I mean, in all seriousness, I didn't actually see the news until this morning. I went to watch the Rangers under-19s last night play. And then obviously when I come home, I was tired, so I just did something to eat quickly, went to bed, and then when I woke up this morning, it was crazy when I popped onto Twitter. I didn't even realise he'd obviously kind of left or whatever. But I think the most damning thing, and it's actually very similar to what's happened to Rangers in the not too distant past, is that there's obviously like a real friction there between the board and the manager, which obviously we've seen as well here. But the statement from like sort of Desmond, I thought was, that's as bad a statement as I've seen for a long, long time. And that's saying something, given some of the things that we've seen going on in the last 10, 15 years. That was clearly two guys that have no real love for each other. And I would imagine Brendan Rodgers probably will never be back at Celtic again in any capacity as long as Dermot Desmond's there. Because you don't say things like that if there's not been a total breakdown in communication. But yeah, it's weird. And then obviously to see them appoint Martin O'Neill, something that we obviously kind of did last year with Barry Ferguson. You bring in somebody that's got that kind of feeling for the club. Somebody that cares, somebody that's got that passion.
What the same guy who said Hearts will win the league?
Yeah, look, and that's the thing. It's a big thing to now come in and try and sort of turn that over, isn't it? And I agree with Demi. I think Rangers and Celtic have got a lot of average players this year. Maybe that can change quickly in football because it can. But right now, when you look at both sets of teams, it's going to take a lot of work for Danny Rowe on our side, and then whoever they bring in is a full-time permanent manager whenever that happens. You don't go from being that far off it to being right on it again. That just doesn't happen in football very often. Yes, you might get a small reaction for a period, but you need to find that consistency. And I think that's something that both teams this season have been lacking drastically. And that's why Hearts should be sitting thinking, if they can win their next 2 league games, they could be 11 points clear of Celtic. And I don't know how many it is ahead of us, probably about 20 or something like that. But it just it shows you how bad a summer recruitment can be, and how quickly things can turn, mate. And that's the thing the other way. Hearts kind of recruited some good players in the summer, especially Braga and obviously the Greek winger, who look very good players. But when you look at how poor Rangers and Celtic have been, that's why Hearts are in the position they are, because we're totally off the ball, whereas Hearts are totally on it. And yes, a lot of credit should go to Tony Bloom, but I think a lot of credit should also go to Derek McInnes for what he's done and sort of finding that consistency and how hard a team they are to play against.
Look, I think we need to look at it logically, Demi. Hearts have done really well. They've beat us, they've beat them. They're unbeaten in the league. Derek McInnes has got them playing really, really well. But I think with what's happened with Brendan across the city, I think what's happened with us at the start of the season, losing Russell Martin and the start that both teams have made, I think what it does is it opens it up. It opens up the league now, I think, to anybody can win it. I think if we get a result tomorrow night and we roll on, pardon the pun, and we get things right and we recruit properly in January, because, look, Celtic are going to recruit in January. Celtic are going to spend money in January. Let's not kid ourselves. There's always that. Hearts might fall off come towards the end of the season, because how much money can Hearts realistically spend, even though Bloom's in there? So I think if we, as Rangers supporters, Demi, look at the season now, where we sit, it's almost as if there's a reset and we go, right, it starts now.
Well, you might be a bit more optimistic than I, Martin. I spoke to Dad about this when I met him this morning. We were saying that, and then it's sort of one of those, yeah, we can afford to recruit players in the summer, but having seen, sort of who we brought in the summer, do you trust, because it wasn't just sort of, Russell Martin with the director of football and all them now signing players, it's, do you trust them to go and sign the right players? It's not even, you can go and throw 9, 10, 11 million pounds at a player, but if there's a better player for 2 million, why are you not signing them? Do you know what I mean? We seem to just go, oh yeah, they're worth a lot of money, let's go sign them. And quite a few times that's actually come back to bite us, because yeah, they've got a big price tag, but they haven't done very well up here. I think if we can get it right in January, and sort of Danny Rowe's listened to with where he says he wants to strengthen and the sort of players that he wants, then yeah, I 100% agree with you that this league could now, you don't want to get too excited that, yeah, you could get back into it. Similarly, Hearts won't be getting too excited about, the rest of the season, because look at Aberdeen last season at Christmas, they were 12 points clear at the top or something, I believe. And then they finished 3rd or 4th. I think Hearts won't be too excited. And, I think I don't think we can get too excited either. But like you say, this season could be anyone's, really.
Like I say, well, I'm not saying that, okay, that's it, everything is opened up, because, we still need to go to Hibs tomorrow, which I think is going to be an extremely tough game. an extremely tough game. There's no guarantee of us taking anything away for Easter Road. I just think if you look at the lay of the land now, it looks a lot different than after Dundee, than after St Mirren. I think there's reasons not to be optimistic now for Rangers supporters, but to at least be a little bit hopeful.
I think for us at the moment, it's just taking a game at a time, mate. I think that's all we can really do. And the manager's going to have to just keep looking at the squad, trying to kind of determine what the best system is. Because Hibs tend to play 3-5-2. So if we go the same way, is that the right way to play against them that we did at the weekend? Do we shift into a 4? I think the one thing that, we've sort of read about Danny Rose so far is he's not afraid to change. And we've probably already seen that in the first 2 games, that he's not afraid to do that. So I wouldn't be surprised if we've seen change again. And yet again, you would have to say that, the substitutes that come on at the weekend made a good impact on the game. So yet again, do they come into his thoughts? Does Mikey Moore come into the team? Is he physical enough to play in these type of away games? However, there's no doubt that when Mikey got on the ball at the weekend, I thought he was very good. I thought he was very creative. He made a lot of good runs. I thought obviously Chermiti come on and did well.
Wally, sorry, Wally. Well, it's in my head because you've just mentioned that position there. I've spoke in most days, actually, most podcasts that I've done about Finlay Curtis. And as you're talking about on the right, because Antman does seem a little bit off it, so does Mikey Moore come into that position? Yeah. Would you know Finlay quite well? You've seen a lot of Finlay's game. Is Easter Road, is that, considering he's not had a lot of minutes, Willie, is that a game that you would consider putting Finlay into?
Yeah, absolutely. Because I think Finlay's not really that bothered about where he plays. I think he's one of those kids. I mean, you look at him last year, he came in against Aberdeen. He had a tough first 10 or 15 minutes, but then he really settled into the game. He ends up obviously creating our first goal. He was involved in a lot of good play in that game. Since then, he's obviously had a little bit more at the start of this year under Russell Martin, where he obviously scored quite a few important goals. Finlay would be the sort of kid that, see, whenever you put him in there, you're going to get everything from him. But I think the interesting thing is, it's like, how do we set up? Who plays up front? Has obviously Danilo done enough up there? Can he play up there on his own? I don't think he can. So, do we play Chermiti? Who, yet again, see, for all the criticism he's taken, I thought when he came on at the weekend, he did everything you would expect of a guy his size. He held the ball well. I thought his link-up play was good. Yes, he probably got a bit fortunate with the goal because the goalkeeper's made a bit of a mess of it. However, as many people have said to me over the years, if you don't take a shot, it's never going to end up in the back of the net. So, we can't be critical of guys scoring goals when we were critical of them not taking shots on for outside the box. I mean, I know that's one of your big bugbears, isn't it, in life, that we don't shoot for outside the box. So how can we criticise guys for taking the shot if it ends up in the back of the net? And, we created as many chances in that game as we have in any game this season at the weekend. I thought we just seen a lot more from a lot more players. And I think possibly that might be down to the fact that up until recently, very few of the players were getting criticised. It was basically Russell Martin, wasn't it, that was getting all the criticism? Whereas now that he's away and the fans are looking at it and going, right, we can't criticise Danny Rowe because he's come in to take over. So a lot of people are then now looking at some of the individuals, and maybe that sometimes sparks a wee reaction with fine players, mate. But let's wait and see what happens over the next couple of games anyway.
Well, talking about new managers and new head coaches, Demi, Rangers are obviously looking to appoint another coach to Danny Rowe's backroom team. Strong rumours that it is between Stephen Davis and Neil McCann. You're a wee bit, I would imagine, Demi, you're a little bit torn on this.
Yeah, it's sort of one that we've seen. So obviously we've seen Neil McCann. I mean, I'm speaking for myself because I'm not old enough to know Neil McCann as a player, but
which is ridiculous.
From what I've seen, so Neil McCann came in last season. Neil McCann came in last season as a coach. Obviously he was in a very sort of Rangers orientated coaching team, but he got not even so much an ability out of the players, but you got a sort of. He got sort of fight and like that desire to play for Rangers. That's kind of lacked last year. Some of the players, they just didn't fully understand what it meant. But he was in there to help them sort of, bring that, instill that in them. And if they're not doing it, help, advise to make the changes. So, he's obviously, one that, yes, we've seen him do it before. He could do it again. Stephen Davis, very similar, big Rangers man, although I believe currently still coaching.
I think he's in Northern Ireland, isn't he? He's working in Northern Ireland, I think, at the moment.
Yeah, but he was he also captained as Demi as well. He was also a captain in the club.
Yeah, that's what I mean. So sort of he play. Not only did he play for us, like you just say, he was captain. He's another one. He knows what it means, but he has that little bit more recent sort of coaching experience and doing it at an international level. So I can see a lot of pros for the both of them.
I mean, this is the most eloquent analysis I've ever heard from a creche. Me and Wally are just absolutely jealous that if me and Wally went for a night out, it would take us about 3 days to recover, whereas Demi's probably sober 2 hours after it. That's the frustration.
Yeah, I'm drunk before I even drink my first pint usually, because I guess I can feel the alcohol hitting my system now.
I'm para about a hangover before I go out, genuinely.
Like, I see the fact Demi doesn't really remember Neil McCann. That just makes me feel ancient, because I remember him signing, obviously playing. I was probably in the stadium with our dad when we won the league at Parkhead, and I don't think I've ever loved a man as much in my life as much as I loved Neil McCann that day.
And do you know who didn't love him that day, Wally?
Probably most of his family.
Most of his family.
But look, I think for me, the two of them are very...
Wally, is it a no-brainer for Neil McCann to come back in, being there last season, knows some of the players, has been a manager in the past? Is it a no-brainer, or does Stephen Davis have that sort of aura about him? Most cap British
it's
player
difficult,
of all
isn't
time.
it? Yeah, it's difficult because it's two totally different situations, though, isn't it? Like Neil came in because obviously he's friendly with Barry. Barry was obviously looking for some help at the time because he was coming in as manager. Obviously, Billy Dodds came in, who I thought, again, he seemed to do a lot of good work with the individual players. I suppose it depends what Danny Rowe's looking for in a coach. Both are obviously very good technical coaches. I think that's the one thing you could say. Neil obviously did a good job for us last year. So, as you said, he kind of knows the kind of building a bit better than what Stephen does. But you look at the level Stephen Davis played at in his whole career, the amount of caps he's won for Northern Ireland, the knowledge and experience that he's going to have. It'll be interesting to see who it is that comes in. What I would say is, by appointing somebody like Neil or Stephen, you certainly do add that mentality change into the dressing room, because you need somebody that understands the football club and obviously what it means to be a Rangers player. And I think that's why so many different managers have tried to bring in somebody like that. Obviously, in the past, with guys linked, like maybe, sort of Kevin Thompson, maybe moving up to the first team when he was at the academy. We've obviously been linked with obviously other ex-players coming in, like Maurice Ross and stuff like that, who might have been... Obviously, we have done that in the academy, but you look at guys like Stephen Smith, like Kevin Thompson, Peter Lovenkrands, they've all been involved. So I do think it is a key part of any backroom staff. But at the end of the day, it'll always come down to what Danny Rowe wants. So I would imagine he'll sit down with both of them, maybe have a good chat with them, find out, how they want, sort of how the team should play. Is that going to kind of link in with how Danny Rowe wants the team to play? I guess we'll find out in the not too distant future, because I think he said, didn't he, in the after-match press conference at the weekend, that he would like to have it done this week at some point. So I would imagine they must have spoke to, whoever the coaches that he would be interested in working with, and it must be close to happen. I mean, it might even happen before the game tomorrow night. They might even be up at the training centre right now working with the first team, and nobody knows about it potentially.
Do you know something we don't? No.
Quite simply, no. But no, I think it's interesting. I mean, like, there was chat about it last night at the game, so like, there's obviously something going on, because the fact these two names are now out in the public would suggest that they've probably been spoken to, that there's probably been a sit down with Danny Rowe, that they've obviously been in discussions about, salaries and stuff like that. So clearly we must be at the end game with
What do you
regards to who
think,
it's
though?
going to be.
Aye, Wally, you say that, right? But maybe they're only on their 4th interview.
True. I mean, I remember, like, Tracy, back in the day, I mean, like, me and you was probably old enough, you didn't even used to get an interview when you used to get a job back in the day. You used to just phone up and go, do you have a job? The guy's like, yeah, and then you'd be in the next morning.
Aye.
Obviously,
sometimes that day.
Aye, so that is actually true. Like, a place I did work, somebody actually started the same day that they actually called up for the job. So, look, it is a changed world now, isn't it? Everybody wants all these flashy things up and, the computers, and they're showing off all their analytical data and they're pointing at stuff. That's probably just kind of beyond my realms of normality, because I'm also an old guy, and
yeah, but you're also a world champion on Football Manager, though. So
that is true.
Don't do yourself an injustice.
Still wouldn't be applying for jobs, because I know that I would probably end up getting into trouble standing in the touchline. Because I got into trouble at the weekend at the Johnston Borough Cameron Juniors game.
I know, and we can't tell that story because I don't want people thinking any worse of you than they already do, Wally. We can't be telling that story.
Hey, I was actually in the right, to be fair. Do you know what I mean? That's the difference this time.
Maybe you were, but you're still a complete psychopath.
Thanks.
I need to, you know how they say sometimes when you tell stories, there's no taking them back?
Yeah.
That once you tell it, they're out there forever, right? So Lyndon says, aye, but Martin gets sacked for sleeping in. That is true, right? I got sacked when I drove for Henderson's buses in Blantyre. It's not there anymore. And do you know what time I started at, Demi? That I slept in for?
2 in the afternoon.
4 in the afternoon. So what happened was...
I believe it.
So what happened was I was up and about and I was sitting watching the telly, and I lived in halfway at the time. And I was watching the telly, and I fell asleep on the couch watching the telly, and I got a phone call off my work at 4:15 saying, "Where are you?" And I had fell asleep on the couch, and I got sacked the next day.
That's when you make up a line, say that you're helping someone, or you're stuck in traffic, or you don't just turn around and say, "I slept in."
No, bus companies it's a different world. It doesn't matter because I hadn't phoned them, so you don't phone them; they know you've slept in. But it was 4:00 in the afternoon, man.
And sometimes you need to take responsibility for it, don't you? Like sometimes you just need to put your hand up and go, yeah, that was my fault. Because at the end of the day, like back then, you probably could go and start another job within a few days. So
I got another job the next day, but that wasn't the point.
Yeah. So actually, sometimes it's a good thing, isn't it? Because sometimes when you're working for places and you think, yeah, I don't really fancy getting in today. Like you do have that mentality, but also the older you get, when you've got like mortgages and bills to pay, you even if you detest the place you work, you tend to just accept it because, well, you don't have any other option, do you?
Why do you think I put up with the comments? You know what I mean?
Because these people who are slagging you probably don't realise that on YouTube they're actually paying you like a penny every time somebody basically calls you an idiot or a tube or any other bad word, really.
I think you'll find it's 0.20 pence.
Well, there you go. I mean, you know, obviously much better than I do. I mean, I'm not one of the guys that could tell you that, but there you go.
As long as you didn't fall asleep while driving the bus. Yeah, I've done that as well.
Jesus.
Yeah. I don't know why I tell people these things, but
no idea.
Do you know when I fell asleep on the bus? Coming up to a roundabout, and I turned onto the roundabout and fell asleep. So there
wow.
So anyway, we should probably move on for that conversation, just in case.
I would imagine you should.
Watching. Do you know, this is a great point actually for Multiple Man, and it's a little bit out there, Demi, right? But I would have preferred the younger route to go, because I mean, of course, Roll's not young enough, same age as me, Rangers manager. But Rhys McCabe, for example, see a young up-and-coming manager like Rhys McCabe, who's played for the club before, who's done relatively well in the lower leagues, has a kind of style of play, if you like, to come in, be a coach under Danny Rowe for 3 or 4 years, hopefully, if that's how long he stays. And then there's that progression for him to possibly take the Rangers job. I mean, I know that's a little bit out there, Demi, but.
Yeah, I was going to say, I could see, him coming in as a coach, could work. But I think no matter how long you spend at a club as a coach, we can't go, oh yeah, in the lower leagues, you were a manager here or you were the coach there. will give you the Rangers job. I think there's a reason that coaches stay coaches for so long, and it's because they go to a big club as a coach because, well, it's a big club who are interested in them. But I think no matter how long you spend there, I don't think that just being 10 years as a coach sort of gives you enough experience to then become head coach or manager or whatever we'll call it in 5 years' time.
I mean, it's one of those things that I think that happens a lot more in Europe, Willie, that a young kind of up-and-coming coach maybe comes in to a club and becomes a coach or an assistant, or even an assistant coach like Danny Rule at Leipzig, and then they make their way up. And I know, I know it's mega out there, right?
Yeah.
Could you imagine Rangers actually done something like that?
But then you would have to have complete trust that the manager's doing well in the first team, because if not, you're not going to get the longevity of like him being able to develop his skills and then take over. And I think that's been the issue at Rangers. Most managers are here for like 12 months, 18 months. So by having this, sort of succession plan, it's fine when the team's winning. Because I think that was possibly the idea that Celtic had with somebody like John Kennedy. I think they thought that possibly long term he would end up becoming a manager. Obviously that's never happened, and it now looks as though he's completely gone. But I'm not against that idea. I genuinely think it's actually quite a good thing to have that in play. And I think it's a good thing for the club because that person's in the building and he sees the players every day. He understands what's required. I mean, that's not to say that, that somebody that comes in and work with Danny Rose doesn't end up taking the job, i.e. if it was to be Stephen Davis, is he interested in becoming a manager? Mm-hmm. If that's the case, then maybe he starts to work even more closely with Danny Rose and sees other sides of the game. I mean, this could be something that has been played out in the background. I mean, somebody like Reece, I think that's a great shout earlier because, what he did at Airdrie was incredible. The football they played, we played against them in the Challenge Cup, although I don't think that's what it was called at the time, but they were fantastic. Some of the football, the movement, the touch, the play was really good. And it's been noticeable this year, maybe with him not being there, that there has been a wee bit of a decline in terms of how they've went this year. And obviously since then, the manager that was brought in to replace Reece has obviously been sacked already as well. So, but no, I think that's a really good shout, to be honest. And I certainly wouldn't be against that as a fan if we want to bring somebody in and try and have a succession plan for future years.
Well, something you can speak about, Willie, because you've seen him quite often, and there's been about half a dozen or maybe even a dozen comments on this. But James is saying, how about Stevie Smith moving up the ladder? Bullets saying, what about Stevie Smith getting a promotion? Stevie Smith has spoke about the fact that he's got plans for his future. And I don't know how that would then affect, obviously, the under-19s. Rangers would need to hire a new under-19s coach, etc., etc. But if you talk about succession planning, Stevie Smith.
Yeah, I suppose the only issue you have with the succession plan is that these guys are then never managed until they take over as Rangers manager, which, let's be honest about it, is an incredible pressurised job for anybody to take on. I don't know if it's one of these things where maybe you allow Stevie to go away and become a manager somewhere else for a period, but he's obviously still on the radar when he's away. And I think potentially that was something that was maybe thought about when Kevin Thompson was at Celtic Hearts and doing well. And potentially any young coach that has an affiliation to Rangers in some way is doing well, then there's always going to be that link to them in the future. Unfortunately, there's just not a lot of managerial jobs out there that maybe have enticed somebody to apply for them. I mean, I'm surprised that Kevin Thompson's not been involved in football that much since leaving Celtic. Do you know what? I thought he might have ended up saying like the Scottish Championship, maybe taking that opportunity, but for whatever reason, that's not happened. But for Stevie, there's no doubt, I think he would have to leave the club to get an opportunity as a manager before there would be that opportunity for him. But if he's then happy to remain a coach, yeah, again, I don't have an issue with him if he's somebody that Danny Rose has been impressed with. Or maybe he can just be a kind of go-between, in terms of the first team and the academy, because Stevie obviously knows a lot of the academy players. He's obviously now worked with the first team now for a few weeks. So it would be interesting to see what his role will be moving forward. But they do have other people within the academy that could obviously do that job. Last night it was Liam Ross who was somebody that came into the academy a wee while ago from Swansea, I think it was. So they've obviously got people in-house, even in the short term, if Stevie was to stay with the first team to help out with the coaching duties.
It'd be interesting to see. I mean, it could be a good thing, Demi, in terms of if Stevie Smith does get that coach's job with the first team, he knows a lot of the younger players. We might be in a better position, maybe, I don't know, than we have been in recent seasons to maybe bring a few more into the first team squad? Or is that just a pipe dream?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think he is. Obviously, he'll start with the young ones who have already broken into the squad, but aren't really seen minutes. He'll sort of he'll know how to get the best out of them. Whether that be in training or warm ups or their 10-minute cameos at the end of games when the game's basically done, or as it has been recently when the games need saved. But he'll know how to get the best out of them, and it'll allow sort of managers to see that they do deserve their chance. And I think the issue that they've got now is some of the players that we've got there, we've either A, paid a lot of money for them, or B, they're said to be these big players or the next greatest thing. So it is sort of hindering our young ones, like Finlay Curtis, for example. He's not playing because unfortunately he plays the same position as Mikey Moore, who the money that obviously we're not paying all his wages, but the wages that he is on, everyone's expecting him to be this sort of, well, before we've seen him play, recently that is, but everyone's expecting him to be this sort of wonder boy. So it's hindering Finlay Curtis. But yeah, absolutely, it would allow us to sort of see those players and sort of get some of the next lot that are ready to sort of break into the first team. And also, similar to, like I said earlier, he's been at Rangers long enough to know what it's about. And, he can certainly kick that into, even not literally kick it, but, he can kick that into even the older and more senior players.
I think sometimes the players do need it kicked into them, to be fair.
Yeah.
Right, we will finish up, Willie, with a question for you.
Okay.
If you want to give us just a very, I'll give you a minute and a half. Right, so you're on the clock. So, what was the score last night at the under-19s match, Willie? How did they play? Who should we be looking out for?
Yeah, well, the lads won 4-1 last night at DL Park. Anybody that's been up there will see how lovely the houses are. I'm sure you have as well, Martin.
A former Scottish referee lives up there.
I believe so. I think they're like £1 million houses, aren't they? It's crazy.
Yeah.
But no, the boys were excellent last night. Really tough conditions, really strong winds. Second half was extreme rain. Like, it was constant for the whole game. Soaked when I come back home. But no, the boys were excellent. Thought they played some really good football. I thought from middle to front they played some really good stuff. Aidan McCallion, Alex Smith and Kyle Glasgow in that midfield were excellent. They moved the ball so well. Lewis Stewart, who's obviously been out on loan, he was playing last night as part of the cooperation agreement, so he was back playing. Chris Conde just scores goals. He's one of the most kind of natural strikers we've got at the club at the moment. Really confident lad in front of goal. Zeb Lawson, obviously, who we picked up from Brighton in the summer, he's starting to get to a point where I think people can see there's a bit of excitement around him, but it's going to take more games, obviously. And defensively, we were excellent. Ryder Maguire didn't have much to do. But yeah, I thought the midfield three in particular last night, Alex Smith, Aidan McCallion and Kyle Glasgow, were very, very good. And they're quite small players, all three of them, Martin, as you're well aware. They're not the most physical, powerful guys, but when you can move the ball as quick as those three can, it makes it very, very difficult to stop them playing. And fair play to Ollie Hind, he scored a couple of good goals from set plays. First one was a really good header. Second one was a volley, I think it was, at the back post, although my glasses were like covered in rain at that point, so that might be slightly blurred out if you watch the replay on it potentially, but no, really good result. And the 17s play again on Friday night in a friendly game against Dundee, so I don't know if Martin's going to make that or not.
I think I'm on the Friday night Rabble.
You go.
But I'm not sure yet. But I will be available more now, I think, to go to the reserve games under 19. I was going to say reserves.
I do believe that Rangers filmed the game last night, so there might be highlights on at some point today. But as I say, the weather conditions were pretty atrocious, so I'm not too sure how good the the highlights will be, because the rain was just like coming from every direction because of how open it is up there.
Well, it is Motherwell, so multiple man. They all look about 12. so is Smith the lad who looks about 12? They all look about 12. But the boy Smith, I mean, I think if you, and I don't want to turn this into an academy pod, right? Because me and you are going to do one of them soon, Wally. You look at Smith and Kyle Glasgow and even Aidan McCallion, right?
Yeah.
We have got some cracking young players in there, Wally.
Yeah, look, I mean, like the level of ability amongst that three, I mean, even when you talk about some of the other players that were not playing last night, guys like Callum Adamson or Callum Burnside, like Blaine McClure, who's obviously out at Nottingham Forest at the moment and stuff like that. You know what, there is good players at the academy. I know sometimes people probably hear me saying that and go, well, why are they not on the first team? Well, quite simply, that's down to the manager, to make that call. But look, I mean, there's no doubt. I mean, Alex Smith, or Smudge, as he's kind of better known, he is just a technically gifted footballer that when he's on that ball, his ability to create space and find those little passes through is very good. Kyle Glasgow just does things that you don't think are possible. I mean, he scores outrageous goals, takes players on, he's got great feet. He's got that kind of arrogance about him, but that's because he's good. But then you've got Aidan McCallion, who just dominates games, he wins the ball back. He's tenacious in the tackle. He's got a great attitude. The fact he's already been up training with the first team since he was like 16 or 17, shows you that he's well thought of. I do think the addition of Chris Condon in the summer after leaving Hamilton's been a really, really big signing for Rangers. And actually, Zeb is starting to get games now. So, we're starting to see wee snippets of him, which is exciting. He's got a decent turn of pace. He's got some quite quick feet. But yet again, I don't think he's hit that level yet because he's not played enough games. But there's quite a few games coming up in the next few weeks. So I would imagine he'll be getting more and more minutes and, we might get to see a wee bit more of him.
Absolutely. But it's very, very positive right now in the academy for Rangers, and there is some cracking players. And I will say the boy Smith, get him signed on FM 26 because he's very, very highly regarded on FM 26, by the way. I will say that. So get him signed on that. Demi, just very quickly then, as we look ahead to tomorrow, we'll obviously discuss, me and Wally are back on tomorrow. We'll discuss it a lot more in depth then. How are you feeling about tomorrow night? And are you going?
I am going, yes. I am going. I think getting the win at the weekend, albeit not exactly pretty, was really important. And, I feel more confident now. When sort of we took the lead and then Kelly scored, and then for us to take the lead again, previously I wouldn't have backed us to do that. So it's given me a bit more confidence going into Sunday. Aberdeen are potentially one of the worst teams in the league, and well, they're like the second worst team in the league or something. But, they've had an awful start to the season, and, Hibs only just beat them sort of this weekend. I think I'm a lot more confident than I was this time last week. I do expect us to win the game. I think it'll be quite a high scoring game because I expect us to concede a couple, but I also expect us to win.
Well, both teams can't defend, so it should be a high scoring game. It really, really should. Well, mate, me and you'll discuss that a lot more tomorrow afternoon. I don't think that there's going to be a press conference. I don't think there is.
It might have been done after the game on Sunday, and then it might get released today. Sometimes they do a kind of like a shortened one after the game, potentially. But yeah, because I've not seen anything on social media today, unless it's happening and nobody said anything.
So we'll wait and see if that comes out. But so yes, we are back tonight, 7 p.m. It is Thompson's Tuesdays for all our lovely members. So make sure you tune in for that. Ian Thompson's head has got slightly bigger since he got a show named after him. It was either name the show after him or give him a raise. So yes. So I named the show after him, and I do have to apologise. Actually, sorry, Wally and Demi, I'm going to have to keep these for a couple of minutes longer because I did get a super chat in for Beatbox.
Martin, before you go, Rangers have just tweeted that it's press conference day ahead of Hibs at Easter Road.
Well, there you go. Press conference day.
Derek Cornelius has arrived to speak to the media.
Well, there we go. So we'll maybe do a wee press conference. We'll maybe do a wee press conference update for the members then at some point. I tell you, Rangers watch these. I'm telling you, because they just like taking the absolute mick out of me. They absolutely do.
I don't think they really need to do that, to be honest. I think you do that yourself, mate, to be fair.
I do it to myself, don't I? I always say the wrong thing I say the wrong thing at the right time. I don't even know how that's possible. But Beatbot, thank you very, very much for the support, my friend. Right, so Wally Beeps can write in on it here. We'll catch Celtic now. I'm completely convinced of that. But I don't see anyone stopping Hearts. It feels like it's their destiny this season.
Yeah, look, I mean, you can't really say that Rangers and Celtic have shown anything to suggest that we could. I think that's the one thing you would say. So, yeah, it's early in the season, but the point gaps come the weekend could be 11 points, which is massive at any stage of any season, regardless of how early it is. It's a lot. I mean, you've got to think like Hearts need to lose 4 games while Rangers or Celtic go on a mad run of victories, which right now doesn't really seem realistic because neither team has shown even close to that kind of level. Because when Celtic have won, there's been quite a few late winners. There's obviously been, the penalty that shouldn't have been a penalty against Kelly. We obviously snuck a win late against Livy. And we only won, our first home game at Ibrox in the league for months. Hearts are in the driving seat. It's just whether they cope with the pressure the longer the season goes on. But yeah, I mean, they should feel confident. They should feel like it's their season that they can go. What was it? They said 41 years since there's been a non-Rangers Celtic winner in the league. This could well be it. And you look at it now, mate, it's happening in all different parts of the world. You look at Union when they did it in Belgium. I think it was Mjällby won the Swedish league at the weekend. You look at some of these teams that are now in Europe, in Champions League and the Europa League, winning their first or second league titles in just the last 5 years. So, yeah, maybe this is a kind of changing of the guard. Or Hibs going to get stronger under their ownership. I think it's fair to say Aberdeen have spent a lot of money on this current squad that Jimmy Keelan's got. So, I think it's a good thing for Scottish football because I think there's a degree of boredom with Rangers and Celtic winning stuff, and I've always said that's fair that people feel that way. And maybe even Arsenal winning the league would be good for England because Manchester City had been so strong for so long. Then Liverpool seem to have taken that mantle, but now Arsenal look like they could be the team to do it. So yeah, let's just wait and see how the season ends and see where Rangers, Celtic, and Hearts might finish up.
Arsenal fans are insufferable. No, just absolutely not. And I say that because I know one quite well. His name starts with K and it ends with Y, and it's got N in the middle.
Right.
Demi, just finally to you on this end, and we'll let people get back on with their afternoons. If Hearts do go on and win the league, there's going to be a house in Aberdeen somewhere that somebody's going to find insufferable for a while.
Look, Dad's already said to he's already said to Carol that if we can't win it, let it be you guys. Which to be fair, I agree because I'd much rather be watching Maroon Ribbon be put on the league title than it be green. So, but yeah,
Carol will be insufferable, Demi.
To be fair, Martin, she would have every right to be. Sometimes we forget that it's a big thing. When you haven't done it for so long, and I think the last trophy that they won was, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe was the 2012 Cup final. So it's a long time waiting for them. Many of their fans, go to all their games, and if she does turn, in any way insufferable, or if she over celebrates, she's got every right to, because we do the exact same, Martin. You just have to remember, if we were in that situation, we do the exact same thing. So, but I think what we have to remember is, picking up what you just said there is, it's, do Hearts have the pressure just now though, or is the pressure on Glasgow? Because the way I'm looking at it right now, there isn't too much pressure on Hearts. The pressure is solely on the teams in Glasgow. It's given that, Hearts have a league game this weekend and neither of us do. That's a chance to go even further up the top of the table.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I don't think there's any pressure on Hearts at the minute. I think Hearts can just play this one game at a time, get the results that they get. I don't think there's any pressure on Hearts at the minute. I think the pressure solely looks at the two teams in Glasgow.
Well, I mean, they've got St Mirren tomorrow night away from home, so we're hoping that, one of the best managers in the league, Stephen Robinson, can do us a wee favour there. But then they're at home to Dundee, Demi. So at the weekend, so you would expect that to be quite comfortable for them. But we shall wait and see. But I like the fact that you've just totally stuck up for Carroll there because you know where your bread's buttered. I like that. I respect that. I totally
To be
respect
fair,
that.
Martin, would we be any different though?
That's not what you said to me before we started. You were giving it, I'll tell her straight and all that.
I know.
Anyways, folks, listen, we shall leave it there. So thank you very much to Willie and to Demi. Like I say, if you want to get involved in the members show tonight, you can join now for as little as £1.99 a month, helping to support independent Rangers media. And you get up to, I've lost count of the amount of shows. But it's at least four or five nightly shows a week. You get 4 morning shows, which is a phone in. You get watch-alongs to every game. You get exclusive interviews, etc., etc., etc. There's hunters over there. And if you prefer your stuff in audio, then you can sign up to the Patreon instead. It is completely up to you. But what I will ask before you leave is if you could just hit that like button, make sure that you're subscribed on the old YouTube. It really, really does help out the algorithm as we try our best to continue to grow. Like I say, we're shooting towards 600 members and we're trying to get to 17,000 subscribers, which is absolutely incredible support. So thank you very much, everybody. Thank you to Beep for the super chat sent in. Thank you for all the comments today. Once again, thank you to Wally. Thank you to Demi. And we'll speak to you all very, very soon.